what does it mean to actually practice masculine frame and confidence? How do you do that? What are some pillars of how to think about this? The one thing you can't take away from me is the way I choose to respond. And that's really what frame means, masculine frame and confidence. Confidence is the Barbara DeAngelis definition of confidence, is knowing that you'll take the next step, knowing that you'll try and take the next step and figure it out all along the way as you go forward. That's confidence. And masculine frame is that you aren't shaken out of your values, out of your boundaries, and out of knowing what you're responsible for and being responsible for your actions through head, heart, balls, and breath. Can't take away the way you choose to respond. That's masculine frame. Here in Man to Man, we want to live free lives of passion in relationship and within our careers and within ourselves, the freedom to feel confident within ourselves no matter what, and to make the most important promises to ourselves. So I'm going to ask you guys here, which of those 4 areas, so in the chat, which of these 4 areas, head, heart, balls, and breath, is a big challenge for you, or the biggest challenge for you? So let's go through it. Head, high regard, what you think in your mind, what you can actually put through your mind when you're standing in the kitchen with your woman, or when you're waking up at 3:30 in the morning and your mind's going crazy, like mine does sometimes. Have high regard for her, high regard for your situation, gratitude, kingly vision in your mind. And kingly vision, I teach, can literally mean, if I were a king right now and this were my realm, how would I feel within myself in terms of leadership and pride for myself, and knowing that I have to make choices that not everyone's going to like? What would that actually feel like in my body? I can envision that. That's head. Heart, open posture, soft front of your body. Yeah, love in your heart. So not in your head. You're in the present moment in your heart, with empathy, curiosity, inspired by life. Balls, take action based on clear values and boundaries. So knowing your values and your boundaries. You're pleased with yourself overall, right? And you own your sexuality with calibration. So you know how to breathe feminine desire through you, meaning maybe you go out into nature and you experience the feminine expression of the world in that way, or a beautiful woman just happens to walk by in your eye line, and for a second you see her, and then you turn away and you breathe in the remembrance of the beauty that she was emanating, not knowing anything about that woman, but just the capital F feminine, and owning that about yourself, that you find women attractive, and owning that about your sexuality to be grounded. And that's part of balls. And breath, so deep breathing into your belly, slow and low speech, relaxed body language. You're present with her, so she viscerally feels that you are relaxed and clear and not on guard. There's no threats. There's no imminent threat, because your body can be relaxed. And women actually talk about this directly. So which of those 4 is the most difficult for you? Caesar, I'm going to put you on the spot. Which of those 4 in the chat there, head, heart, balls, and breath, that I was talking about, would you say is the most difficult for you?
I'm just looking at it and then thinking about it, and sometimes I think the balls, I would say, probably, because not just with my wife, but just in general, you know what I mean? Let's say you see somebody, like you said, like a girl walks by, right, and she's like, she got great eyes or great hair, and sometimes you're like, man, I would love to just tell her how great she looks, or something like that, but without being, like that fine line of like, I'm not hitting on you, I'm just saying this. You know what
Just
I mean?
saying. Yeah, I'm just
I'm
saying.
just saying that this is what I see, and sometimes that I refrain from doing stuff like that, even though I'm not looking to any go beyond just saying what I appreciate, what I see, that I, that I admire, I guess, or whatever you want to say, and not being labeled as, I don't know, creepy, or, oh, you're trying to hit on me, or one of those things, I guess
Sure.
that's
Yeah, absolutely. Are you speaking about just women in general,
in
or
general. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
just saying. just just
Just
saying you
saying.
look good. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's only going to go over well in certain spots, I would assume, right? But
Oh
as far
yeah.
as what you're wanting for yourself, and lots of guys said balls, right? Head, heart, balls, and breath. Lots of guys said balls, which again is taking action based on clear values and boundaries, knowing what you want and your boundaries. Pleased with yourself pretty much at all times, right? Can't be rattled. And own your sexuality with calibration. So lots of guys put that, Caesar. So
Oh,
what else for your own self, as far as owning your sexuality if a woman walks by in front of you? what do you do with that energy? If you can't take that to your wife, what do you do with it for your own self to
I
transmute
mean, you
that
use
energy
it
or
for
motivate?
towards other things, like whether it's like a project that you're working on, or little things that is gonna give you that energy and use it towards something else, whether it's working out, whether it's like a project you're working on, and try to release it some other way. So, see if you're not getting the sexuality part of it, then use the energy for something else, I guess. Whether it's just going to the park with your kids, and just try to like use the energy to like do something and use it wisely, I guess, and not just sit at home and feel bad, I guess, because you're not getting it somewhere else.
Yeah, movement helps me a lot too. I agree with you there. Like
Yeah,
go to the park or just going for a
I
walk,
gotta,
getting
yeah,
outside.
gotta
I
be
agree
active.
with
Grab
that.
the bicycle, go for a ride or something.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
Thanks for getting us started, Caesar. Good to see you,
yeah,
bud.
yep.
Yeah, Keith, come on in. Did you punch into the chat? Balls. So why is that out of head, heart, balls, and breath potentially the most challenging for you, Keith, would you say?
I think when I look at all the categories, that I naturally, some of them I felt pretty good about, and naturally I was able to be better on those categories, except for balls. I think I've been inconsistent with balls. Now, here's the thing though, is I noticed on balls there is a part about sexuality. I feel pretty darn good about that. I feel like I'm it's pretty easy for me to express my sexuality. That's not the problem. It's the decision making part, and or the boundary part that I have problems with being consistent with. So that's my biggest deal. I think I've gotten much better than I have been in the past 3 years, though. So I just a work in progress. And here's the funny thing about this work that I've noticed is like sometimes I feel like I'm up here, and then sometimes I get knocked down a peg, which is awesome because I think it's a very good representation of what life is really like. You can't get too high. Somebody has to knock you down, so you can stay modest.
Yeah, I appreciate that human reminder, Keith, for sure. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, the own your sexuality, but boundaries. So are you thinking of something in particular around boundaries right now or recently?
Nothing recently. Recently, I feel pretty good about balls. But in the past, that has been a sticking point for me because, like, I'll throw out something real big. The house that I'm in right now, I didn't really want to get it. I my wife, she was beating on me, beating on me, but beating on me, and I relented. But I really never wanted to get it. So there's balls for you right there. I didn't have the balls to stick with my choice.
Hmm. That's been what, hanging over you for quite a long time then, it sounds like.
Um, it was. I've cleared it up with her and myself first. Obviously, I remember going to the therapist and talking to him about it, and getting clear on what was going on there. And what he came up with is that it was a fear based, emotional based decision. And for me, I don't know how to put this now, but it's more like this decision to move into this house was me not wanting to do it was me trying to protect myself, trying to protect myself
Sure.
from being more intimate. Or I always think that in this relationship and maybe some past relationships, I get real close with someone and then I have to find something to run away or to use as a crutch to run away from the relationship with.
Sure. I
I don't
mean,
know how to wordsmith that, guys. So I'm trying my best here.
no, no, I mean, welcome to the club. I think we
Yeah.
all have so many of these things in common, man. That's why it's good. That's why it's good
Yeah.
to be here. But
The one, the one thing I wanted to say though, the other gentleman, I saw your name was C. I don't know what your name is, so I'll just call you C. But you were talking about the women thing, and I was thinking that sometimes I just blurt stuff out, and maybe that's not the best thing because sometimes I do get myself in trouble, but it does feel good once I get it out.
oh, like owning your sexuality.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. He only gets slapped once out of every 10. See.
No, I've never gotten slapped. I've never gotten slapped, but I mean, I tell women that they look good in glasses or their eyes look beautiful. You look nice today, whatever. So I gotta get something out. I got to
It's
get
good
something
when it
out.
works. When it
Right.
doesn't is when it sucks.
Yeah. Well, and today I went to a store and I noticed that there was a really nice looking woman. She came. I went from one store to the next, and she came in behind me. So I had to say this line. You know this. It wasn't really a line. It's just what I thought at the time. So I blurted it out. Are you following me? And then we had a quick discussion, and that was it. So I got to say, it's more like if I have something in my head, I get an impulse. And if I don't say it, then I feel bad about not saying it. So I got to let it out. That's just how I operate most of the time.
Yeah, sounds like living in the moment in a
Yeah.
fun way. Yeah, very cool. So I can understand why you say you do pretty well in even the other areas of what I was calling balls, right? Values, pleased with yourself, owning your sexuality. But it's around the boundaries that you kind of raised your hand on, and
Yeah.
I can understand. Yeah,
Yeah.
right
I
there with
mean,
you.
yep. And actually, since you're talking about boundaries, so recently, just to give you a kind of an update of my status, I've been alone in my house for about 2 months now. So I've been going out a little bit more. I've been doing karaoke and stuff like that. And I did actually come into a boundary situation. I was out at a karaoke bar and I met an older lady, and my friend was talking to her, and she was extremely rude with me. So usually what I would do is just be polite, whatever. But I just set a boundary. I said, hey, look, if you want to come over and talk to me, you can't talk that way, you know, and just left it at that. And then after that, she was extremely polite with me. But the old me, I think I would have let that go and I'd have tried to kill him with niceness, you know. And I think that for me going forward, it's important that I try to set boundaries and make sure I own it. And it's probably harder for me than most people.
Yeah, well, good for you for having courage to step up and say something. Absolutely. Well, that's the hardest part is
Yeah.
getting over the potential, what would you say, like potential embarrassment, potential confusion? What do you think is the fear originally?
Well, so here's the funny part. And so we were talking about sexuality and blurting things out. I don't have a problem doing that because, like, I look at those things as kind of positive. But when it comes to something negative, and for some reason, I always look at boundaries as being negative, which they aren't. I have a problem with that. I'll have it sitting right there, and I want to say it, and that's harder for me to set that boundary. And maybe some of you gentlemen, maybe it's easier for you to do that, but for me, I haven't reconciled that all the way. But it does feel good once I do actually set the boundary to tell that lady that, hey, look, I'm not going to take any of that. You know, was great for me. And I thought it through. I was like, well, if she continues to do it, then I'll just remove myself from her presence. And that was pretty much it.
Right. Nice. Nice, man. Good to see you. Thanks for the story.
Okay.
Yeah, and it seems like you're moving along. So you said you're in your own place for a couple of months now?
Yeah, 2 months.
Yeah, good for
So
you.
my no, so I have the original house. My wife, she left, and she's got the kids left with her. So I've been alone here for 2 months until we're done with the divorce. It looks like,
Oh, I
or
see. Okay.
yeah.
Right on. How often do you get to see the kiddos?
I saw him today for a few seconds. So we haven't worked out the custody. So she's actually got them at my father-in-law's, and she's playing house with them. She's trying to have 100% custody of them. And I mean, for me, I can't fight her and except with my lawyer. So just waiting for the legal system to help me out on that.
I see.
Mm.
Yeah. Well, glad you're here, man, for sure.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Lon, you put polarity, balls and polarity. Talk with us about that for you, would you say, from your point of view?
For me, it just comes down to, we talked about this North Carolina, Jeff. It comes down to that fear of rejection. It's almost, I mean, I kind of kill the polarity because it's nice guy tendency, right? I tend to go into nice guy instead of really sort of stating my wants, desires, needs, being, authentic and true. I kind of shrink just a little bit. So
Yeah, I mean, in this moment, I'm wondering what you're comparing yourself to. You feel the shrink inside of you is what I'm gathering. Is that what you mean? You feel like a shrink?
well, I'm basing it on, I mean, it's about a year ago that I started dating. Before that, I spent about a year and a half really, processing going through the separation, divorce, all that. I really wanted to wait to date. I didn't feel ready.
Mhm.
And then I don't know how to explain this. For a while there, I didn't. I try to lean into it. Sometimes I try to lean into what I'm afraid of. And for a while there, I felt like I wanted to date because I didn't like being alone.
Mhm.
So I
Instead of
just stayed alone. It was important for me to face that and be like, okay, what am I really fearing here? And then I realized after a while, I was like, nah, I'm afraid to go meet women. Like, nah, I'm afraid to go do that. So then I just jumped, I do what I did. I just jumped in. I joined 4 dating sites, and I did a lot of dating this year. I just felt like I just wasn't, the polarity part was the part that, you know what I mean? I heard a lot of you're a great guy, but I mean, and when I read and when I, when I so then I Google that and I look into that and I study that. And when I see that is that women are like, I like you, but I don't want to you. I mean, that's, to be blunt about it. And, we've talked about this in other calls. I think that's my edge, Jeff. I need to, I just think I need to be more authentic and true to that and less afraid that they're going to say no and more about what I want and sort of leading through that process, and being authentic, instead of sort of hiding that like, oh, I really don't want, and being like, yeah, the fuck yeah, this is what I want. You know what I mean? I like you, you're attractive, and I do want to touch you and I want to penetrate you and I want to connect with you. And I feel like I just can bring nice guy tendencies to that. And that's my edge. That's where I need to lean into and, so
Yeah, some guys were high-fiving you over, I saw on the camera. Like
yeah,
Keith.
thanks, guys.
Yeah, yeah,
It's good. It's
yeah.
good to know
Fist
what you need
bump.
to do, and at the same time, it's kind of scary because then you're like, oh, I got to do that. I mean, so yeah,
Absolutely. I think we all know you've got it. We just saw you've got it. So it's a matter of practicing, right? Bringing it around women. Yeah.
I think that's what I need to. I'm actually going to take a break. I've been listening to John Wineland a lot, and I'm getting rid of all my dating apps right now because what I found is that I was trying to get. I felt like I was chasing it.
Mm.
And what I've really tried to do is I want to kind of let it go and I just want to give and I want to see what happens. I kind of want to open myself up to the world. I've been chasing the dating apps and I want to actually get rid of them
Mm.
and I just want to see what happens. Like what the world offers me when I'm not chasing it. When I get really comfortable with who I am and where I'm at,
Yeah.
and then I want to see what the world gives me. So,
Well said. Sounds like
yeah.
a fantastic plan.
I'll let you know how it goes.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Thanks, Lon. Good to see you.
Thanks, Jeff.
Yeah. Julio, come on in.
I would say the balls. Yeah, I think I've always had like values, but they weren't always very clear, and I've never really noticed until I started working, until I started hanging out with you guys and doing the Kingly Life Path, and actually seeing how important values and boundaries are. Just like Keith said, if somebody's rude to you or talks to you really disrespectful, sometimes I'd just ignore it, but even though I did want to say something, but I just ignored, or I try to be nice to somebody who disrespected me, and yeah, and I think that's something that I need to work on still. But I think I'm being aware of it more often now. On those boundaries, on what's okay to do and what's not okay to do, and I'm just trying to simplify it to that point, what's okay, what's not okay to do as far as my boundaries go. And yeah, and I like how Keith put that. Some lady said, some rude comments, and just saying it, gives you that. It just it's almost like a leadership role, that you put yourself into, and it gives you that confidence. It's the confidence builder, you know. Yeah, I think that's probably my most difficult part is the balls.
Yeah. Keith typed in swagger. He was agreeing with you, Julio, with the swagger part of it. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and man, and I'm still working on my boundaries. It's just yeah, and I'm just trying to simplify. Sometimes I guess I try to make it so I overthink it, try to make it a perfection boundaries, but I think I just got to write it down, and just let it flow, and then just kind of look back on it. But I mean, yeah, and then was it own your sexuality with calibration? Um, what does that exactly mean, or kind of what do you mean by that?
Yeah, that's a good question. So if we're talking about your woman, who many men are separated when they come to this work, right? Initially, of course, this is where we come because it feels like our legs have been knocked out from underneath us with our values strewn about. I say it feels like I was thrown out of the club into the alley, into the back alley of life, like thrown against the brick wall by the bouncers, and picked myself up and wondered what the hell has happened with the way my life was structured, right? And so often that's with our relationship, of course. But our own sexuality is, so if it's around her, it's what I've called the staircase of intimacy, which I think everyone has heard, or if you haven't heard our audiobook, right? The staircase of intimacy. And that's how to take actions toward emotional intimacy and also physical intimacy. So calibrated would be where she believes you to be, how safe she feels with you, how open she is with you, how in flow she is with you, how feminine she is with you, presenting with you, and for you to be able to read that and surf that wave with calibration. That's what calibration would mean. Sexuality, if you just saw the example I gave earlier, was if you saw a woman who was just beautiful who happened to cross your path during the day, or if you're out and about and you saw a beautiful sunset or some kind of beautiful natural thing within the day, would you breathe that in? Would you appreciate that? Or would you appreciate the woman for her essence of femininity, not because she is that one particular woman that you have to like stare at or consume or try to go attain necessarily, but that you can breathe that through you and enliven you and appreciate the capital F feminine of life, and without shaming yourself for that, being attracted and like honoring that about yourself with any beautiful woman, as I just described, within your own mind and within your own heart and in your breath, right? As far as what to do with that energy, but with your wife too, and never turning off all the way your pilot light of interest for your wife if you're in a separated place. So maybe it's turned all the way to like a 1 out of 100, your level of sexuality with her, but you don't neuter yourself because you're in relationship, because you're separated from your wife. You're still in a relationship, right? If you're no longer in a relationship, that's different. But often when a woman wants space, we think we have to turn our sexuality off to zero, and that's not really, ultimately doesn't serve us or the potential of the relationship to turn that to zero, because then we don't feel like a man. We're not creating polarity, just like Lon was saying. So that's the sexuality with calibration. So how's all that come across to you, Julio?
Yeah, at this point, I'm me and my wife are separated at the moment. Yeah, I think I can definitely appreciate another woman's beauty. I mean, at this point, I can, and and I have done that before, with coworkers and just people that I don't know, and it just comes off naturally. Like, hey, I really like your hair; it looks really good in that color, or I like what you do with your hair, or I like your shoes, stuff like that. And that and that comes off naturally, appreciating that the beauty there and the attractiveness. But right now, at least with my wife, it's I wouldn't say it's all the way down to one, but I think she's at. I mean, we still talk, but there's still a little attractiveness there. So this last Sunday, I took her and my kiddos out to dinner. And it was a good time. I mean, it was a good time. I felt good. I felt confident, calm, and I wasn't expecting anything. I did it out of just out of me. I wanted to do something good, and spend
Sure.
time. And just that whole perspective where I wasn't expecting anything, and I was just doing it out of my heart. And just being calm and confident, and actually just being open to what she had to say and understanding. There was, I felt like there's attractiveness, but I think for her, she didn't know what to do. Because I don't know, I don't know what we were in the truck. The kids got out, and I was dropping them off at the house, and she stared at me for a while. And there's a bit of there's attractiveness because I stared at her in her eyes, and I think she didn't know how to approach it. She's like, she smiled. She's like, "Hey, don't touch me," And I wasn't even trying to touch her, but she kind of smiled. But I think she didn't. She felt something, but she didn't know what was going on. I guess.
Sure. Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I mean, there is that attractiveness. I know there's been a couple times where I did comment, on how beautiful she looks and stuff. Sometimes she doesn't take it very well. I mean, she takes it well. She doesn't like lash out on me, criticize me. She's like, "Oh, really?" And she'll say something like that. And I'm like, "Yeah," and then I don't expect anything. But I don't know. I guess yeah, I don't know where I was going with this, but I was just thinking about that.
Yeah, well, it sounds like, I mean, you're very aware of the situation. You had talked about what's sexuality with calibration, right? And so
Yeah,
you're calibrated in those moments, and sounds like you're
yeah.
aware, her eye contact, and yeah.
So yeah, I guess I did calibrate that there. I still respected that she didn't, she didn't want to, be touch or hold her hand or touch her hand. And I didn't take that personally, it's just like, okay, that's fine. And that was it, but it was a good night. And yeah, I guess that was some sort of a sense of calibration as far as that goes. I didn't
Yeah.
push too far, and I didn't want to push on that either, because I didn't want to make her feel like I was trying to manipulate her, which wasn't at all what I was trying to do. But maybe that's why she did that. Um, she didn't know what was going on, but yeah, I guess I can see that sense of calibration and being aware of that. Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds like you are very aware of your spot. The spot that you're in, the place that you're in, and I can relate is it's really hard to be centered within your own self if she wants no kind of contact. And
Yeah.
then when you see her, you feel like there's some kind of vibe or some kind of thing, and there's really not, you can't really do much because she's asked you for no contact, it sounds like, basically, no physical contact.
Yeah, and I mean, and I can feel that she does want contact, but then in a way, she still doesn't trust that,
Yeah.
because there's been, last week there's a couple times where I gave my kids a hug, and she looked at me like if I was gonna give her a hug, and she kind of just took a little stutter step back, but she still had that eye contact and still smiling,
Yeah.
But again, I didn't push, and I was like, okay, well, I just let that be, I don't want to push it that far, and it would, yeah, yeah,
Yeah, yeah, I mean, you're doing well. The counterintuitive part that's difficult is that the whole she doesn't trust the feeling at this point. This is hard to hear, but this is the reality I've seen over and over. And there was a man that posted about this on the forum last week, actually, about how that until we basically fully believe the relationship is over, it's almost like a given up. You still have, the way I would describe it is, you have love in your heart for this person, for her, for your, the mother of your child, mother of your children. But what she doesn't trust is the feeling of like the hanging on and wanting to go back to what we had, which
Mhm.
of course, that's what you want. And I can understand the good things that were there, right? The love that was there. But she won't trust any kind of a going back feeling. And
Right,
so I think you're doing really well to recognize the moment, to not back down. You're not turning away, you're still seeing her, but you're not trying to do anything about it right now, because this is the
right,
exact time when she basically, you're kind of you're in a catch-22 spot where you can't really act on it, but you still don't neuter your own energy about it. You're still there, you're still an adult man, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
And I think what's kind of helped me too is a lot of that stuff at this point I'm not taking it personally anymore. I've gotten to a point where I've kind of just of course I want to save my marriage, but at the same time I'm like I'm not trying to save my marriage at right now. Of course that's what I want, but I've kind of stopped at that and kind of trying to change my perspective on just focusing on myself and this work and kind of, I guess, yeah, like you said, letting go of that old relationship that we had. And I guess if whatever happens, happens. But I again, and I think you've explained this, is getting to a point where whatever outcome it is, it's gonna be okay. I think that's where I'm finally getting over that hump. It still hurts, of course it hurts. And for some reason, since I've changed that or trying to move over to that perspective, this has been happening with her kind of like getting that feeling where she doesn't trust it or she doesn't, if that's gonna be like the old relationship or not. So yeah, and I think that's helping me out, or at least it's feeling a lot better for me at least.
Good. Yeah, good for
Yeah.
you. Yeah, good. That's crystal clear. I appreciate it. Yeah, absolutely. Well, good for you. Knowing that you're starting to feel like, to know you have hope for yourself regardless
Yeah.
is what this is about. That makes me like super inspired for you. It's awesome.
Yeah, thank you. And that's man, I really appreciate everybody on here. That I think you guys have been a huge help, like just doing this and it's been a whole new chapter, I guess,
Yeah, absolutely. Fantastic. Well, good to see you, man. Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
good to see you.
Thanks. Mohammed, come on in. What would you say out of those four, the head, heart, balls, and breath that we showed and that were in the chat there, would you say you have the biggest challenge with?
Balls.
Yeah, I didn't expect it to be almost unanimous. I think there was only one other one answer that wasn't balls. So how from your point of view, would you say values, boundaries, pleased with yourself, your sexuality as we've been speaking about? What would you say for you?
I would say boundaries and pleased with stuff.
Yeah. Boundaries and pleased with self. Did I hear you correctly?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
What would you say is what are some stories with that? We have about 2 more minutes, so the stories can't be too long, but what's an example of one of those for you?
I can't sleep on time for whatever reason. Like if I want to sleep at 10:30, there's always like I can never, things happen around in the house, the family, I get pulled, and somehow I've been successful. Well, I want to sleep at 10:30, for example, and made that happen. It's very hard. I always allow some other priority to this one. Sometimes it's difficult because, well, sometimes that's the only time I have with wife to have some bonding. So there's a conflict there where I have 5 children, so that kind of keeps me busy for now because one is in college. But yeah, so there's a conflict where I want to work on marriage and bond, but I also want to sleep early so I could wake up and start my day and do R&M stuff and kind of do that. I feel like I haven't been able to successfully put a boundary there, as an example. Even though my wife is fully supporting, it's just I don't have the balls to do what I want to. It's one.
Okay, so I'm curious. So boundary meaning when you say boundary, do you mean something is happening that you feel is interfering with you being able to go to sleep, or you're just not going to sleep early? It's just on you.
It's on me. Like if that's meant to be my resting time, I allow things to take that away from me.
Sure. Yeah. So thank you for calling that out. And so it's the other one was pleased with yourself. So you're not as pleased with yourself because this is happening. It sounds like, yeah. Is that fair?
Yeah. And in general, though, there's more work to do about feeling, the self-worth, the value, I've gotten a little better, but there's still a while to go. Being just self-assured.
Yeah. Yeah. Welcome to the path. It's a daily thing for all of us, right? And I think my self-work journey, my personal work journey started about 15 years ago. And there's been different phases to that. And, I love being at in this journey where I am and where you are, every one of you, as we do this together. So I appreciate it. Mohammed, good to see you.
Thank you.
Yeah. That's our call for tonight, guys. If you haven't seen all my stuff, greatmenmovemountains.com or the Great Men Move Mountains YouTube channel. Reach out to me on our forum as well. Love seeing you guys here. Keith, Lon, Julio, Mohammed. See you guys are fantastic. Saw you, Nevin, Dan, Paul, and Harry too. Have a good one. See you guys next week. Ciao, guys.